We're finally beginning to see the market act a little rationally, and that's deflate some of the air out of the overbought balloon. This rally began in a very obvious and clear instance, very catalyst type instance, and also peaked on a very interesting catalyst. So we're going to review both these catalysts, view them in a larger context, and how the catalysts that led those things to happen actually played out in reality. So when did we begin the rally? We began the rally, I believe it was October 12th or October 13th, right around there. CPI came in hotter than expected. The market sold off aggressively pre-market, opened down, but continued to rise from, as low as something like down 2%. It was a very red day to close in the green. This was on a hotter than expected CPI report. And clearly there was a notion of, okay, this is it. This is peak inflation. And people decided, you got to go in when the pain is greatest because that's the buying opportunity. We're going to get to the pain, the greatest question in a moment. But that logic kind of makes some sense. But we have to look at the fundamentals that occurred since then. So we'll get to that in a second. Finally, I just want to highlight that the market peaked from this, October 12th rally on the misinterpretation of Fed Chair Powell. So we went a real long way with that movement and that rally. So peak inflation, let's address and discuss this notion. The important thing around inflation is not only the impact it has on consumers and businesses, but the Fed's response. While maybe that was the peak headline CPI or something like that, it unfortunately was not the peak Fed response. At the time, the market was not pricing in 5.25 to 5.5 in the Fed funds rate, as it's slowly starting to now, as the Fed is forecasting is a more probable range. It was still anticipating some rate cuts, which it no longer is doing so, and we're seeing a massive now correction in the 10-year. So we're seeing a lot of new tightening and recovering from unusual, unexplained easing. So the peak CPI we thought on that October day when the market was down and we decided to come in and buy preemptively has now actually been a moved, more hawkish goalpost, with the Fed now kind of hinting at 5.25 to 5%, 5.5%. And that leaves us with a pretty big, important question. Is the Fed actually going to stop there? Because I'm not seeing a whole lot of signs of this. Let's back up a second. The market rally was able to continue because the market continued to price in rate cuts this year, a lower terminal federal funds rate, a lot of notion, a lot of talk about a pivot, about a pause, about a cut, about a recession. All these kinds of things. Dovish, more dovish than expected Fed, easing coming down the pipeline, all this. It should be abundantly clear, if not already, that none of this is going to happen. And this was all false premises and false hopes. So the market is up still double digits from that level. In my opinion, that is on false premises and false hopes, which we now, at this point, have gotten the clarity, gotten the information. We're going to get some more tomorrow from the Fed minutes. That's going to provide us additional clarity. And we're going to get PCE later this week. That's going to give us additional inflation information. There's a lot of important things that have happened in the past couple of weeks. We obviously saw CPI reaccelerate. 0.5% month on month. That's 6% annualized. That's a high rate of inflation. Let's not forget, the market was swooning on the fact that the Fed was saying if the data comes in better, we might pivot. Well, they were also saying, in conjunction with that they needed to see 3 months of consecutive declining data, and then that moved to 6 months of consecutive declining data. We were starting to build a streak at around 3 months. If the January inflation data continued that, it would have been 3 months of that continued data. However, that was not the case. We broke that streak. So now we got to reset that whole 6 months of declining data before the Fed is starting to feel good that inflation is on a sustainable path towards 2%. if the actual rate of inflation is really starting to look like 2%. If we're still at 6% CPIs, but we're kind of just seeing some weird slowdown, month to month or something, I don't think they're going to be super confident that inflation's on a sustainable path at 2%. I think, there's a lot of things we need to actually, do you feel like we're on a sustainable path at 2% when we're having 6% annualized month-on-month inflation, when we're coming in higher than expected on CPI? No, I don't think you do. And I certainly don't think inflation is ready to come down right now, fall like a rock, all this stuff. I think energy prices pulled back because there was an SPR release. And I think the Fed thinks the same way. They have been saying things like we have seen no effects on our rate hikes, or little effects on the rates, or on the economy and inflation because of the rates. A lot of it has just simply been energy prices pulling back. That's why we're just seeing it in goods. We're not seeing it in labor. These things need to pull back, and we're going to get more information on that on Friday. We have yet to really see that labor side of the inflation picture for January. We've been hearing about how the goods side is coming right down and labor is hot. But in January, the goods side was, CPI was plenty hot. So what does that mean for PCE? I don't know. We're going to have to see what happens. But it's an important data point to watch and to wait for. So the Fed doesn't seem convinced. The lows were made, and the recovery from the lows was made on assumptions about what the Fed would do. And those assumptions turned out to be incorrect. And we are actually going farther down the hawkish path now of Fed assumptions and potential moves than we were at the lows for the market. So that is plenty to digest and think about. Let's see what the minutes imply tomorrow. Let's see what PCE looks like later this week. And let's hear the Fed speak. But you know how we're thinking on this channel. We've made videos before today. We make videos all the time. So I appreciate you watching these videos, and I hope they provide you some value. So that's today's video. And until next time, peace out.